Let me officially welcome you to the book launch. My name is Zwelibanzi Masilela. I will be your program director for the next hour and a half or so, hopefully not more. You are welcome. This is the number 43 COVID-19 book launch. And we thank you for taking time off your very busy schedules and time with family on a Sunday to join this event. As you can see from the screens, this is an international launch, truly representative of the global community. We have people from across different time zones, which we sincerely appreciate. We also have dignitaries on the platform, but I will defer the proper acknowledgement and protocol to a senior family member to represent them and introduce them properly. As we begin, allow me to share a few of what I'll call the rules for the launch. The first one is the meeting is recorded. We will share the recording at the end of the meeting. May we keep our mics off and try, if you want to speak, be recognized by the program director. And to do that, you can use the hand raising function or comment on the chat line on screen. Please minimize movement back and forth from the screen to, it can be distracting, and avoid eating unless you have a real urgent medical need to eat. If the preference is to keep the video off, please do that. Post the formal start of the program, and then you will be requested to switch it on when you speak so that we can easily identify you. I shall now allow Mfundisi from the Manzini Parish Lutheran Church to welcome us in prayer. I hand over to you, Mfundisi.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege and an honor to be part of the launch of yet another book by Elias Masilela, the number 43 COVID-19 Journey, which talks about life under a different lockdown. I find that the launch of this book could not have been at a better time than Women's Month. We know that women are severely impacted by the pandemic as they take care of more people in their families. The person who inspired the Masilela family is a woman, Makoko, a very strong and powerful woman. She was not only a mother to her own children, but to all who came to her home. I am reminded of a woman by the name of Dorcas Tabitha in the book of Acts, chapter 9, verse 36. It reads thus. In Joppa, the disciple named Tabitha, in Greek her name is Dorcas. She was always doing good and helping the poor. As we read further, we find that the woman got sick and died. Because people called for the disciples to pray for her. Peter prayed, she got up and continued with her good work. The book that we are launching today reminds and encourages us to do good even in the midst of such a deadly. For instance, we have seen the Masilela family continuing with Makogoism, thus helping hundreds of needy people. We are all encouraged to help others during this time, to help us. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we come before you this afternoon. We thank you for this opportunity to launch this book today. We pray that this book may be a blessing to everyone who reads it. May they be inspired and encouraged to help others during these trying times. We ask and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mamfundisi. I shall now hand over to the senior-most member of the family, my uncle Lucky Masilela, to officially welcome all of you and also give you a context of the book that we are here about today. Masilela, the floor is yours.
Zambe, Yatogos. Colleagues, friends, countrymen, can I invite you today in the different time zones to join us today at the book launch, which is a journey that we have redefined for ourselves. But before I do anything further, I would want to recognize a few people, a few guests who are with us today. I want to start with somebody who is special to our lives, who has been able to keep us together, and that is our father. It's difficult for me to call him our father, because we have been outnumbered, the ones who call him father. So he is better known as Umkhulu. There are more grandchildren and grandchildren than the 9 of us who are the children of Umkhulu Nomagogo. The count stands at around 72 of the grand and the great grandchildren of Ubaba, Solomon Utobo Masilela. We thank you, Solomon, for joining us today. And Umkhulu is 96 years today. He turned 96 a few weeks ago on the 5th of August, my apologies. We want to thank you, Umkhulu, for being with us and for being this shepherd, this stronghold of the family. And since August is still the month of Mama, I think I will recognize the guests in that order. I will start with Obo Mama. I will thank Umama Mfundisi for the beautiful prayer for opening Umsebenzi. Siyabonga Mama Mfundisi Shabalala. We really appreciate you. You and the Lutheran Church in Manzini have always been with us as a family. And also I want to acknowledge and recognize our former Deputy President of Republic of South Africa, Umama Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, who is now an executive at the UN Women. And incidentally, Umama Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka is a former awardee of the Magogoism Award, or recipient of this Magogoism Award. And she also in her life has something called 43, somewhere in KZN. I also want to recognize our Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Umama Pinky Kekana, who also has joined us. Thank you for holding this fort and making sure that these issues of digital content and digital divide are addressed in our country. Mama Kekana. And also I want to recognize our guest speaker for today, Umama Nados Bekele-Thomas, who is a United Nations Resident Coordinator. And important than anything else is the fact that the United Nations is our partner today. So it is important and a huge milestone for us as a family and as a nation. And as I proceed, I want to recognize the presence of the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Eswatini, Baba Mandvulo Ambrose Dlamini. Baba Mandvulo, Prime Minister, siyabonga ukuthi ube nathi namhlanje uStobusiseka siqine kakhulu. And also I want to recognize a former Prime Minister of Kingdom of Eswatini, who is equally a patron of number 43, and that is none other than Ubaba Absalom Themba Dlamini. Baba Dlamini, siyabonga kakhulu emlangeni wenwekune. Equally in our midst, one of the persons who is in our midst is somebody who has walked the passages of number 43 Triloni Park, somebody who has been involved and who was also protected by the citizens of Eswatini, who is today our General, General Soli Shoke. We thank you, General Soli Shoke, for joining us. It is equally important and a milestone for all of us. And when we talk of number 43, we can never finish it without mentioning the people that I have introduced. And I want to thank you all who are connecting from the different time zones. You are most welcome. You are warmly welcome in traveling this journey with us. This is a period for us, all of us, not only the South African citizens, not only the Masilela family, but the entire globe. It is encountered by a pandemic which has clearly devastated not only the economy of the countries, but the social cohesion. People have not been able to mingle. People have not been able to get together. We have not seen Umkhulu Masilela in over 3 months. The last time we saw him was in March. And you can imagine what is happening to a 96-year-old who usually is accustomed to seeing his children come around to him. And what it meant is he was looking forward to the celebration of the number 43 Trelawney Park event this year in June. And unfortunately, this event was never to take place in the normal way. However, we did still have a celebration. We had our Prime Minister of Eswatini attend the event in our absence, and Umfundisi Shabalala, to make sure that this event does not only sit in the shoulders of the Masilela people. It is now an event that is embraced by the community at large. We thank you for that. And the theme for this year was culture and freedom. And I think we'll have to continue next year with the theme of culture and freedom. We were meant to also recognize our Pan-Africanists who had laid the foundation for our freedom, for our independence, but never to see that independence, that freedom. None other than Stephen Bantu Biko from the Black Consciousness movement, and Ubaba Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe from the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania. And we also were to recognize the Dr. Esther Masango, an artist, Umamom Gwalo, who is representing and holding the culture of South Africa very high globally. The first was going to have the youth share with us, and these youth are the youth that we know in the space of music. And these youth were carrying the flag of the importance of culture. And these youth are your Shoma Josie or your Nzikwane, your fast-rising Afro-soul artists. And of course, our struggle has always been supported by the Manzini Choir. They are still here 30 years later, and even more. And we thank them for that. The book, what happened? What happened is when lockdown happened, we were used to meeting, we were used to gathering as a family, and suddenly something was taken away from us. We then started to meet as a family on a daily basis. And we would talk, we would chat, we would invite Umfundisi to join us, and he would be there to debate the Bible. He would be there to tell us about things that were important around man and God. We also were discussing issues of economic growth. We were discussing issues around our politics. We were almost advising and providing cushion to each other. And this resonated very well amongst us until somebody in our midst decided, he said, this is worth telling a story. The fact that we are achieving this much and recording every evening, Ubaba Mukwena is amongst those who joined us. and also gave us a prayer. And that planted a seed in our mind that let's tell this story. This difficult story, something good has come out of it. And this is what we want to do. That is all that happened. It's a family that went through similar difficult moments that each and one of us went through, and decided to document it and share it with you. We really appreciate that you have been able to join us today and be part of this journey in launching our book and telling our story during this difficult period. I want to thank you again, Niti. You are most welcome. Ngithi nangiceda ngithi mhlambili ingqondo beza dela amadoda sikaja sapemvu akupemvu amambala ngodaka. Masilela.
Thank you very much, Lambi. Thank you very much, Masilela. Next to you, there is Angel. Angel is going to read us something important that gives us another perspective to that, and a more comprehensive, if I may, perspective to the book. Angel, the floor is yours.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Angel Masilela. I will be basically giving a brief on the number 43 COVID-19 journey that we, as the Masilela family, have experienced in the 140-something days that we've been in this so long. So, as a Masilela family, every year since 2007, we as the Number 43 Foundation have hosted a globally significant legacy event. Unfortunately, this year, 2020, we could not. This was historic in its own right. And instead, we decided as a family to document this historical occurrence in the form of a coffee table book. This is predominantly electronic and distributed free of charge across the globe as our contribution to society for the world and of humanity. This is made possible by our generous supporters who have ensured that we keep their resources and use them for the preservation of humanity as colorfully illustrated in these books. We invite you to journey with us in marking the delicate steps taken by global humanity, navigating the landmines planted by the unforgiving COVID-19 virus. We as the Masilela family have found it appropriate to ensure that the launch of this book coincided with Women's Month in the recognition of the bearers of life. Even more importantly, the Foundation partnered with UN South Africa to appropriately position and popularize the story and history across the globe. We are not only proud of this partnership, but humbled by it yet again. The support of the Number 43 cause is deeply and truly appreciated. This humble approach behind this initiative is to tell a simple human story of families living in lockdown, both in South Africa and across the world. So, it is an opportunity for the gathering and wherever people gather to experience the first comprehensively documented experience of families in lockdown, as well as to see how technology was used to overcome. This is what President Ramaphosa urged us to strive for as he led the nation down the dark, unprecedented journey. This will be a sharing of experiences across the globe in the lockdown through a Number 43 lens. It is a humanitarian exercise in its own right, and one most apt during the month of August. We hope that one day, this book will be a key point of reference when people look back in history. As stated in the editor's section, uniquely entitled, The Dawn of Dusk. Whilst we have spent the last 12 years celebrating those people who have dared their lives for South Africa's freedom, this year, we have been forced to preserve humanity. This dovetails neatly with this year's now deferred legacy event, whose theme was Culture and Freedom. In recognition of the contribution of Ubuthongo in South Africa's total liberation. COVID-19 rudely interrupted. We now find ourselves self-incarcerated under these lockdowns, a stark contradiction in kind. It is instructive to note that this work is dedicated to all those who have lost their loved ones and were affected by COVID-19. In particular, it is dedicated to those citizens of South Africa and of the world in the front line who have dared their lives for our health, many of whom were lost in the battle protecting us. We have kept you all in our hearts and in our prayers. We will continue to do so as long as we shall live. Be part of the legacy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angel. That was very good. Thank you very, very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Babu Tunangulu and other distinguished guests, we have our keynote speaker that I am privileged and very honored to introduce. Madame Nados Bekele-Thomas is the resident coordinator of the UN in South Africa. She was previously the senior director of the Office of the Secretary General. She also served as the United Nations resident coordinator and UNDP resident representative in the Republic of Kenya and also in the Republic of Benin. Prior to that, she served for over 4 years in Kenya as a deputy resident representative. She holds a master's degree and a PhD in candidate certificate in economic development, monetary economics and econometrics from New York University, NYU. She's an author of several papers and monographs, and she is fully bilingual in French and English. Ms. Bekele-Thomas's interests include promotion of human development, anchored on the principles of economic, social, and political rights for all. She has excelled as a private sector policy advisor, focusing on the promotion of trade and investment in African countries through the PPP model in the United States, PPP being private-public sector partnerships. Ms. Bekele-Thomas has also served in the technical and advisory capacity in which she helped initiate and conceptualize a pro-poor program on the social dimensions of development. Ms. Bekele-Thomas, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister of Eswatini, the Honorable Ambrose Dlamini, Your Excellency, the Patron of Number 43 and former Prime Minister of Eswatini, the Honorable Amsolom Themba Dlamini, the former Deputy President of South Africa and the current Executive Director of UN Women, the Honorable Phumzile Mlambo Nguka and former awardee, the Chief of the South African Defence Force, General Soli Shoke, fellow speakers and awardees, my respectful Nkulu Ubotongo, and all participants. We find ourselves meeting during a challenging time when an invisible enemy has undermined the social fabric of this country, its economy, healthcare, jobs, education, placing greater strain on families and their breadwinners. It has tested us in ways we could not have imagined. While we commend the South African government's commitment to a whole society and a whole of government approach to the COVID-19 response, there is also a whole of family approach too, where we look out for one another, no matter how near or far we are in the world, lending a hand or just listening to them. This pandemic has taught us that family is more than the biological ties that bind. The family is a firm unit, looking out for each other, asking, how can I help? What can I do to assist? When this opportunity came to partner with the number 43 COVID-19 journey, I immediately saw the value of this publication and to honor the work that has gone into it, At first glance, it may appear as a simple story of families in lockdown, both in South Africa and across the world. Upon closer inspection, it is a comprehensively documented experience of families across locations and age groups. More so, I fell in love with the story of Umagogo, a woman who not only managed a home that sheltered and conscientized members of South Africa's struggle heroes, but she was also a woman of conviction, passion, and leadership. The spirit of Umagogo lives with us today, which I see strongly displayed in that of the Masilela and extended families. I have no doubt that Umagogo's spirit guides this event today as we face a different kind of struggle, the divisive and invisible enemy of COVID-19. While the disease lays bare the differences between us, it also connects us. From East Swatini to South Africa to Mauritius and China. We are gathered here because of the legacy of number 43 and Umagogo. But I am also honored to share this platform with Umagogo's husband, 96-year-old Solomon Butong, who I refer to with affection and respect as Nkulu. I put my hands together as I acknowledge and salute your presence here today and the role you two played in the family story. Nkulu, Father Ubutongo, you have certainly lived to tell the tale. Born just after the Spanish flu in 1924, you witnessed the great drought of the 1930s, was conscripted during the Second World War, and lived through the inhuman of apartheid. You also witnessed the transition into democracy. Now, you watch your family rally around during a global pandemic that has shut down countries for months at a time, and in many cases, separated families. We are blessed with your presence and salute your legacy here today. When COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic, it was only a matter of time before the virus entered South Africa. As a UN family, our immediate priorities were twofold: assist and support the government and people of South Africa, and ensure that UN families in South Africa were safe and protected. The leave no one behind principle is fundamental to all the work we do. It guides our response in all we do. While this human rights-based approach is inherently about those who are most vulnerable, it's also an approach that we must implement in our various families. Don't leave your parents, your siblings, your nieces, your nephews, your neighbors, and community behind. We are all stronger together. I believe that Umagogo lived her life in that way through the many roles she played: a nurturer, a teacher, a homemaker, a mom, a wife, and a friend. The Masilela family did not allow the COVID-19 pandemic to interfere with the annual commemoration of Magogoism. I want to acknowledge Zwelibanzi Masilela, who encouraged his uncle to document the impact this virus has on the family and the wider community. Even though this exercise is through the lens of just one family, it remains a beacon for many other families too. Through technology, the meetings and catch-up sessions moved beyond the daily checkups there was debate on the efficacy of the government's response and dangers of the virus. It was heartening to learn that all meetings began with a breathing exercise and a prayer. Each family got a chance to host a meeting. This family even held their breath for 20-second intervals, arguing this would strengthen their lung capacity. I smiled to myself when I saw that you attempted to hold your breath for 43 seconds. And I thought, wow, this family really lives the brand. Then the family started inviting guests to join for prayer, inspiration, and motivation. But this family also had to endure the loss of loved ones in lockdown. They were each other's strength. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate the youngest contributor to the book, 14-year-old Uviwe Masilela. She wrote a piece reflecting on the family discussions on gender-based violence. She writes, "We agreed that men should never feel entitled to control women and families. And families have the obligation to always protect their female members. We spoke about using our platforms to spread awareness and knowledge about the situation. We mentioned that families should always be there for each member if anything were to happen. Homes should be filled with love. It is common that some abusers come from abusive families and end up growing with hate and violence. To end the cycle of gender-based violence, homes should be places where kids enjoy love, care, and affection." And this is what she wrote. "I am proud of you, Ubuwe, to lending your voice in finding ways to end the shadow pandemic of gender-based violence. I see much of Umagogo in my own family. I was born in a big family with 14 siblings, 10 of us from the same mother and father, and I was just in the middle. I grew up watching my mother managing this big family and providing for her children. A meticulously organized and hardworking person, a naturally gifted leader and manager, she paid particular attention to her dolls and our schooling. In fact, all her girls are relatively more successful than her boys. She earned the respect of my father, who feared and respected her at the same time. There was nothing that could happen in the family without her authorization. She was called the slave driver by the family. We always wished for a mother softer, gentler, and for a macho father, as actually my father was softer than my mother. But as I grew older, I started admiring this remarkable mother. She featured as my reference for everything I did. My mother is now 93 years old, and she is living with me. The COVID-19 is certainly affecting her. On a daily basis, at breakfast, she poses the same one question: when is this ending? When will I go back home and see my family? Will I forever be separated from the rest of the family? And my response is also the same. Mama, this is going to end soon. We are learning to appreciate the importance of togetherness. It will be over soon, and you will reunite with the rest of the family. Ladies and gentlemen, we all need to aspire to be the mother that could shape the being of the vision we have for the future generation, very much like what Umagogo did. Today's event also comes during the commemoration of Women's Month. 2020 is a pivotal year for gender equality. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the international blueprint to achieve gender equality and women's empowerment adopted by 189 governments across 12 critical areas of concern. Indeed, there has been significant progress on women's and girls' rights since Beijing 25 years ago. 131 countries have removed discriminatory laws. More girls globally receive 12 years of education compared to 6.7 years in 1970. Global maternal mortality ratio decreased by 38% since 2000. In South Africa itself, at 50% of women ministers in cabinet, one of only 11 countries in the world, women have the right to exercise control over their reproductive health and have access to social protection. What the Masilela family is doing now is having a conversation about gender-based violence. As a family, they are collectively tackling the unfinished business of empowering women through a multi-generational conversation. Because what we know for sure is that when women lead, development thrives and peace prevails. I want to close by paying homage to the people to whom this publication is dedicated to those who lost their loved ones and were affected by COVID-19 in any form or manner, to salute those citizens of South Africa and the world who dared their lives for our health, many of whom were lost in the battle, protecting us. As you rightly observe on the book, it is faith that kept the number 43 movement alive, focused and determined for over 40 years in exile. It is that same faith that will propel number 43 and its legacy to greater heights. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, and talking about family, I am glad to see many of my wider UN family participating in this event. A family that has rallied together and worked tirelessly, especially during this difficult period of lockdown. I am truly blessed to be part of this family. In particular, I want to single out my big sister, who's also my boss and my friend, Phumzile Mlambo Tukuka. Phumzile, I want you to know that at a personal level, you are a very special, kind, humble friend and sister I truly count on. On the professional level, as my boss and the boss of many of us, women, you are a source of inspiration, motivation, a mentor, a go-to person, always positive, constructive, engaging, and encouraging. We all admire you and love you. I want you to know that you are a symbol of all good qualities. Your passion and commitment is infectious and will last forever. Finally, a great thank you to the Masilela family for this invitation and for ensuring the legacy of your family's heritage. I hope this book finds itself on the coffee table of each and every home in this world, as it carries immense value. God bless you, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for the very encouraging words. If I could, I would have asked everybody to clap, but I know once it starts, it won't end. Thank you very much. Now to the next part of the session. This part will be led by the compiler of the book and the uncle I pestered to do that. Elias Masilela, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Zweli. I'm glad that you've identified yourself as the nigger who started the trouble. And that's why we're here today. Under normal circumstances, this is where the author stands up to defend her book or to defend her thesis. But this author is not going to stand up. For one simple reason. This is a very special book, a very special launch, and a book written by both people alive and dead. This is why this author is not going to stand up. But what this author is going to do is going to invite the audience to engage on the content of the book. She is going to allow everybody who has had the opportunity to access the book electronically and surprise you by saying, in fact, the book was given to you in advance as your homework. So today, you're going to be tested on the homework that you did. Further, those who contributed towards the production of the book will ask you to share your experiences as a lesson to humanity. And what is very important here is that the authors range in age in a very, very fascinating way. The youngest is 14 years and the oldest is 96 years. That's the value of the content that we're going to engage on today. At this point, the author opens the floor to volunteers to share their experiences and to share what they picked up from in between the covers. Now here is the trick. Very, very important trick. If there's no volunteer, the author knows every participant here and she will call them by name and you cannot say no. The floor is open. Three, two, one. I don't have a response. I will then pick at random. Shami?
Masilela, sorry to cut you.
Yebo.
We have Apostles Kosana on the chat. I think by him thanking us, he is volunteering to start.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Honorable Ma'am Kumzile. Thank you very much. You know, this is such a humbling experience for me. I started this journey with you back in my days at DTI, at the Department of Constitution in 1999 when you were the Deputy Minister for Department of Trade and Industry. And I asked you to participate on a conference when we were launching MIIU with Gugu Muloy. You know, Ntate Masilela, thank you also for the opportunity. I'm coming all the way from Kabalasani, which is a rural area outside Pretoria. Myself and Tate Masilela came to come and view the site where I wanted to start a skills development training center in the legacy of this morning was just one of the most dynamic days that I have spent where I had the echo brick people coming through at 12, where we have recognized a site that Masilela, the journey that we started in November, I think it was before November, September, I think, in 2015, before I was even aware that I was going to be an apostle. I'm an ex-DTI deputy chair, I used to be the DTI deputy chief operating officer under Lionel October, the current DG. I understand government like the back of my head. I will share with you my profile. Dr. Masilela has got access to my profile, and in promoting the lady Zika Magogo, I've been to Swaziland many a time, and the last time when I got into this journey, and Tate Masilela, it was in 2014 when I was in Swaziland. I played, and I didn't know that after that I was going to be under my own personal lockdown to come and serve as a humble citizen of COVID-19. So some of us, our lockdown started when I finished the Eswatini project of the Swaziland Electricity Company in 2015. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am. Sorry to hurt you.
No, I was just saying thank you very much for the opportunity.
You are very much welcome. Thank you a lot. Continue, Babman Tate Masilela.
Thank you very much. I had already identified Charmaine before the apostle came in. Charmaine, may you share?
Sorry. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. But I'm going to hand over to my partner to actually state how we actually supporting people during COVID. Melissa, will you do the honors, please?
I will.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Charmaine. Elias, thank you for the invite, and good afternoon to everybody. As you can see, I'm in Leicestershire in the UK. And I just want to share with you, with my colleague Charmaine and Kabeshni Govender, who is also on the call here. Kabeshni, if you can just give a little wave there, in terms of what we've been doing during COVID to help support the community. And we've actually launched something called Each One Hold One, which is a supportive platform to women supporting women, both in the business and in our personal well-being space. And what we've been doing is hosting webinars or conversations on a fortnightly basis for free. We have guest speakers that talk on an array of topics. And also what we are doing in terms of one-on-one support is that we actually have people sign up to Each One Hold One who can either offer their support in terms of their area of expertise, and we have people sign up who are in need of support. And then what we do is we match those people. We actually call them apples and pears as our little way of going about it. And it's a fantastic initiative, and it's growing. We launched in March, and we're now in August, and we have a great following. So we're looking forward to growing it from here and post COVID. So I just wanted to share how we've been supporting the community during COVID in this very difficult time.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Whilst we are offshore in Europe, I'm going to suggest that we stay offshore for a while. We have a South African who is in China, who is joining us today. Mapule, may you please share your experience as a South African in China? And tell us exactly where in China you are.
All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Mapule. My surname is Ranta, and I am coming to you live from China. The city that I'm staying in currently is Foshan. So for me, I firstly just want to say thank you very much for this opportunity once again, and I want to share my experience briefly. I'm a woman of very short words. I don't have much to say. Actually, I'm very overwhelmed right now to be part of this great launch this evening. Okay, so the experience for me here in China has been very tough. At the very beginning, the outbreak, when it started, it was unexpected, and I never thought in my life that I would survive merely by just using a mask, you know. In the past, everything was just really going well for us. So the COVID hit us at a time where it was the Chinese New Year and everyone was getting ready for the holiday season. And after that moment when we heard that COVID-19 has arrived, basically, we had to be well informed about the threat that this disease causes to the lives of many people, and we had to ensure that we are safe. And kudos to the Chinese government for making sure that everyone's health comes first. So they have been able to ensure that we get tested, especially the foreigners. Even though there were some controversial stories that were being shared about the lives of African people that were there were some racist attacks against African people, but I would want to say that I'm one of those people that were fortunate enough to have not experienced any attacks from that had arisen from the situation that happened in Guangzhou. Foshan is a city that is closer to Guangzhou, and I was also quarantined. The police came to take me away for quarantine at a nearby hotel where I'm currently staying. The experience was not what I had expected, because a lot of people were saying that you know, it's going to be like really racist and all of that. But I think when we have to talk about racism, we have to understand that yes, it does exist. It exists in all systems, in all countries. I think the most important thing, what I have done, and that has helped me a lot as a foreigner living in China, is that I have to do everything that the Chinese government tells me to do. That means I need to follow the laws and regulations. And therefore, in my case, whenever they tell us to do something, in this case where the situation about racism took place, it was a matter of the government, taking some health commitment checks in the specific city of Guangzhou. And so it was to actually help the African people, because there were so many reported cases in Guangzhou, and the reported cases were in particularly from African people. So far, after the quarantine, I was quarantined for a number of 7 days, and I tested negative. I have been so far tested about 5 times, and I know that this could be unfair for a lot of people, but I think the Chinese government have really been trying to control the situation. And so they always try to make sure. The reason why I was tested so many times was because I was quarantined, yes, and that's the movement. The more you move, let's say you move from where you're staying to a different district, they will have to test you for that, and that is the reason why I was tested so many times. And the tests were in particularly for different reasons. The other reason was for as the school's record, because as an English teacher, I needed to go back to school, and in order for me to go back to school, the school needs to ensure that I have tested negative and not positive. So one test was in particularly for my position as a teacher at school. Other tests that were done were for where I am staying as a resident. And so as I'm explaining, I'm sure you can all agree that this was just a way of controlling the situation. And so far, we are doing well. Gradually, we have been able to adjust to this new change. I can confirm that at my school, we have been teaching the students without wearing any mask. And so all the students were also tested, and all the teachers and every other person who is working at our school, everyone was tested, and we were all negative, and there was no need for us to use the masks. But when we are traveling to our schools or to malls or any other areas, we do wear our masks.
Thank you very much for that experience. It's giving an interesting perspective to those who are not exposed to it. There is a volunteer, indirect volunteer, Ola Jobi, talking about her experience in New York. Can we have Ola Jobi represent the experience in the US? Is Ola Jobi still on? If she is not, may I ask somebody else who is also in the US? I can see he's moving. Matthew, may you please represent your experience in the US?
Firstly, thanks so much for taking the time to share your journey and your experience with us. It's always, amazing opportunity just to hear, some of the challenges and the experiences that you and your family have gone through. And I think it's something that we as the youth need to, take to heart, to learn from and understand so we can move forward. My experience in the US, I've been living in Atlanta for the past year. So as COVID started, the shutdown wasn't really, enforced. So they sort of had a shutdown, but then there wasn't as much leadership, I think, where, every state was doing their own action. So they enforced closures, and the governor would come back, the mayor would go back and forth, and they'd open restaurants, and they'd open tattoo parlors and bowling alleys, and it's, sort of up and down. And that's why we see the cases are just going up and up. And now, there's no real shutdown in place, so people are carrying on, and it's just continuing to spread. In terms of testing, I think it's all on yourself. So I think there's no real enforcement by the government. Any lockdown that is in place is more self-imposed. And I think that's the approach that's sort of followed here in the US. It's more about people wanting to, quarantine for themselves. So I think that different approaches have different results, and one thing we can definitely see is the cases in the US are rising, and they're continuing to rise. So it'll be interesting to see how things do turn out. But there is quite a stark contrast with some people don't believe in coronavirus. They don't believe it's a problem until, they actually get the experience themselves and someone in their family does get sick. So it'll be interesting to see how it does go. Luckily from my side, I have been safe. The people that I do know across the world have been safe at the moment, and it hasn't hit home yet. Is there anything more specific you would like to know that I can speak about?
No, Matthew, that's fine. That gives us a peek into your life, and I think it's very helpful. Just to confirm, you're on the West Coast, eh?
Yes, I'm in Atlanta, so we're about 5 hours from the coast. So it's a bit more landlocked. So it's just north of Miami and just south of New York. So we're on the West Coast time, so we're on Eastern time.
Okay. I can see there's somebody else in the north part of the U.S., Boston. Niaz, do you want to give us a half-minute of your experience?
Sure. Thank you for this blessing of being here. And it's been a very unusual experience, shelter in place, but a lot of going back to basics, being with family, speaking with family, FaceTiming with my grandmother, who is in Canada. And I had the opportunity to join the family, the Masilela family, on one of the calls. And I too was touched by holding breath for 43 seconds and drawing on the strength of Yuma Gogo and the family, and how that strength is very important going in the future. So I've been thinking a lot about how when we're acting as one and being collective, unified, that we can win, and we can all be well. And I think this is preparation for some of the challenges and opportunities that we have in the future. And so I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so thankful for the leadership of the Masilela family and showing how we can be as one during difficult times.
Thank you very much, Niaz. I would like to get closer home and get a view from the western side of Africa. Leslie, can you share with us your experience being locked down in West Africa?
Hi, hi, Elias and everybody. Pardon me, the power's just gone out. It's just been interesting, this conversation, and it's just been a blessing to know your family and just this lovely group of people that's gathered on this call. Yeah, being in Ghana it's been really interesting. It's been good. I think that on one part, I'm really blessed to be in a country where people are extremely warm and you feel like a sense of community, even though you're in a city. It's lovely to pass people even with their masks and everybody's kind of greeting you and getting along with it. You see that resilient spirit and that positivity and hope, which is great. On the other hand, with regards to COVID, some of the challenges have been the fact that, the elections are drawing near. And so with campaigning, how are people campaigning? How are they not campaigning? And then to a degree, there's been conversations that have been happening around COVID where you'll speak to certain people. If you speak to an Uber driver or something like that, their view of it is very different, where they kind of think that it's maybe more of a class issue. So it seems as though the way that the reporting has been going, or when you speak to people, it's only attacking or people that are being affected are an upper echelon of people that are being affected, and average people kind of are like, is it really happening? Is it not happening? And so they're going about their business. Although people are being cautious with regards to wearing masks, there are obviously every so often where people aren't wearing masks and so forth. But, that's kind of the general overview. I've personally had friends here, because I have quite a friends who I've known for quite a long time. One of my friends, her brother-in-law, unfortunately passed away from COVID about 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now. And he was somebody that was very cautious and really, he was the one who was telling everybody, wear a mask, use sanitizer, practice social distancing. So that was quite a shock to all of us, him passing, and he left behind 5 children, including 2 young twin girls, which is really heartbreaking. We've had that situation that we've had to deal with. Also, my friend's cousin, a separate one, she called me from the COVID center, the Ghana COVID center, which has been really well put together. And I didn't know she had COVID, and nobody knew that she did. And she called me literally to warn me because her child was playing with a mutual friend's child, and she said, "Look, she's got COVID. She's on oxygen." When she video called me, it was quite a shock. And afterwards, she, thank God she's okay now. But afterwards, when we spoke on the phone, she said that it's a very scary situation, and she hasn't actually, her body has not fully recovered, but she has had pre-existing conditions before, but she said her body has not fully recovered. So there have been those sort of stories. We've seen the Minister of Health in Ghana also get COVID, and the President, I think this has been part of the reason why he's come down so hard, as we've seen, certain people getting COVID and so forth. And we had a situation where the President had to also go into isolation because people who he was in contact with who were part of different ministers, one of them had also tested positive for COVID, so he went through an isolation phase for about 14 days, and he's come out of that. Well, so he's healthy, which is a really good thing for the people of Ghana in general. So here it's a class conversation. The fact that many people live hand to mouth. That's been one of the challenges. If people don't get to work, if the economy is not moving, people literally don't get to eat. So the government has been releasing or taking down the measures bit by bit in order to ensure that people were not starving at the same time, but certain rules have still been kept in place with regards to masks and social distancing and so forth. But people are moving about and doing what it is that they need to do, but they're doing it cautiously, and obviously we're hoping that things will get better. The borders are still closed, but they said that they're looking at September, the 1st of September, opening the borders. But what has been the main thing is that they want to ensure that once the borders are open, that they're able to have effective testing that gives semi-immediate results more than anything else. So that's where we're sitting in Ghana holistically.
Thank you very much. And the interesting thing is that she went to Ghana for business and she was locked up there. Really, I know I've run out of time. Can I use 5 minutes of your time? There are 3 names that I want to call on, and I'll ask them to be brief, and I'm sure they'll work with me. Kubeshni wants to come back. I would like us to get an experience from our neighbor Botswana. I would like Muitsepi to help us with it. And then I would like to wind off with the youngest contributor of the book, who has displayed amazing leadership in the family that we didn't anticipate. It emerged in lockdown. So can we take them in that order? Kubeshni, Muitsepi, and the youngest contributor. She knows herself.
Thank you very much, Elias. And let me start by saying how wonderful it is to be in the company of such esteemed people today. Thank you very much for inviting us and for indeed allowing us to be part of your family. I think, Elias, you asked the question, what did we connect with in relation to this book? And the piece that I think we connected with from an each one hold one perspective is the piece around Magogorism. And I want to read the way you guys captured it, the spirit of giving and sharing selflessly. That connects so well with me, with what Miss Bekele-Thomas has shared. You're talking about, this is a family piece that you guys are sharing. And what she says is that family is more than our biological ties. And for me, and I think for my partners, Charmaine and Melissa, this is the start of selflessness. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for showing leadership. Thank you for showing us leadership in connecting beyond boundaries and across borders. I think if anything, where we're at right now, COVID has indicated that we can only do that in times of crises. So thank you very, very much, and deep appreciation to all of you.
Kubeshni, thank you very much. Muitepi, you have the floor. Botswana is now no longer represented. I can't see Muitepi. She's dropped off. May I check with the gathering? I am being bombarded with written requests. Can you spare an extra 5 minutes to accommodate one or two other speakers before we come to the youngest contributor?
You are my boss.
We're fine. Okay. I can see that Ola Jobi is back. Is the other one? Ola Jobi is back to give us the New York experience. And there's Tamia also who wants to say something about GBV. If Mutsepi is sorted out, it looks like the technology is coming there for her. She can come after Tamia, and then we go back to Uviwe. Ola Jobi, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you very much, my brother, and thank you very much indeed, everyone. I'm really excited, but I'm honored actually to be here this morning, from morning in New York. And I just want to thank the family for documenting something, because, you know, Africans, it's said that Africans don't write. And when you write, you become an author. When you write, you are cited. And this is for posterity. So congratulations for the book. I just want to say here, in terms of COVID-19, you all know that America is the epicenter, and New York, where I, work from, was also the epicenter of coronavirus. I survived, I tell you, because of God, and also the fact that we had a great governor, because we had to work also from home. As I work for the United Nations, we had to work from home, and we still work from home up to now. So it's still tough in my area where I live. Everyone wears masks. People don't take it for granted. I see what's happening in Africa, how people take this for granted. And I sometimes wonder what's happening. Here, we don't take it for granted. It is real, and people are taking it seriously. So let me just say that I don't want to waste time, because I know that people you have to leave. And I also came from church, and I have to go back to church now, church online. So thank you very much indeed for giving me this opportunity, and I want to congratulate you again for writing this book. And please pray for us in New York, because we're still hearing that this might come back. We need your prayers, and I will continue to pray for you. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ola Jobi. I have no doubt we have a lot of prayerful people, and they shall reach where they're supposed to. Tamia, I'm told you want to talk about GBV.
Yes, Sanibonani Molweni, bonjour, Jumbo. Thank you for having me. I would just briefly like to speak about gender-based violence, as it is Women's Month. I'd like to bring to everyone's attention, it's been a year since Uyinene's passing. On Monday it will be a year. And I'd like to bring to everyone's attention once again that before lockdown, we all knew that gender-based violence was going to increase. The numbers were going to increase, and it is quite a pity. It's quite, heartbreaking, especially that this week about 20 women passed away due to gender-based violence. And our president did mention last year that we were going to have a list of the predators, pedophiles, and so forth. And still nothing has been done. And it is great sadness, yes, that we're experiencing. I would like to mention here, the gatekeeping and protecting of toxic masculinity and patriarchy must come to an end. Over 20 women this week were killed at the hands of men whose names we do not know, yet we remember the women's names. The sex offenders and perpetrators of a femicide list must be made public, and that's what our president said a year ago, and still nothing has been done. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that.
Thank you very much. I know that there's a lot of policy people in the room. I'm sure that they have taken those words and that piece of advice. May we go on to Mutsepi?
Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So I switched from my laptop to my phone. But I think, first of all, it's just a big thank you. An earlier speaker spoke about how Africans don't document. So I think it's quite important that we're starting to write our own stories. We're starting to tell stories from our point of view and not from a different point of view. So I think congratulations to you for documenting and telling the story, an African story. And then from the Botswana side, it's been a very interesting experience. So we started off with a lot of control and less than 20 or so cases and really strong contact tracing, etc., etc. And then we had a long weekend where things got a bit relaxed and then we started to move. So now what we're seeing, we're in a scary part, and I suspect we haven't reached our peak yet, but we're in a really scary part where COVID-19 cases are mushrooming everywhere, and now it's getting increasingly harder to contact trace and to control the disease, and our health system is also starting to feel the impact. So I think from my side, we're in a really scary place, but I think we'll get through, with time, and if we just all keep wearing our masks, etc., we'll be fine. But it's quite scary right now what's going on, and I think we're very privileged. For me, I think the take home from COVID, apart from the sadness of the GBV issues that are happening, what's really sad is that COVID-19 exposed everything. And what it exposed that I can really see is the inequality in our economies. And I just say for Africa as a whole, something like staying at home and working from home, wearing a mask, lockdowning, that's a privilege that we have, that we can stay at home and actually lock down and have food to eat. But for the people that are at, let's say, a lesser economical status or financial ability, their dynamics are very different. So it's hard to tell someone in the township or from an impoverished background to social distance because their lifestyle doesn't allow for that. So for me, what COVID has done is just awaken the injustices, economic and social injustices. And I think this is an opportunity to reflect and to learn, and maybe going forward as policy, as government, as businesses, as individuals, to be more inclusive in how we do business and how we live. So that's my reflection on this. And I'm looking forward to reading the book. I'm sure there'll be a lot to learn on the other side. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for the good neighborliness. We are learning from you. I would like to wind this up by bringing View to the screen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you all are well. I felt the need to speak about gender-based violence because it's something serious, something that's been happening for years. I was inspired by the many women who are not only fighting for themselves, but also fighting for their rights and fighting for other women and supporting others. Women have been taken for granted and for advantage for many years. Firstly, for them not being able to get jobs, and then them finally getting jobs but getting paid half the salary that men would get paid, and for the exact same job, by the way. I believe we live in a dangerous world, not because of the evil people that live in it, but because of the amount of people that tell themselves that the issues of our world are not their problems. So to see men fighting for women and against gender-based violence was inspirational. A lot of people are starting to pay attention to gender-based violence, but not many teens speak about it. Gender-based violence is a serious conversation that I think parents need to start having with their kids, because the more ignorant we become, the more effective it will be. And it's something serious. Women have been dying across our country. And I just wonder sometimes how many more hashtag stop gender-based violence and hashtag I am not next need to circulate around social media. Mind you that these things circulate around social media for about a week or so. But the trauma that these women face will last for a lifetime. What I have to say on this may only be a drop in the ocean, but I know for a fact that that ocean would not be the same without that drop. Lastly, I would like you to take time out of your day once in a while to ask yourself, what difference are you making in gender-based violence? If you are making a difference, and I'd like you to also ask yourself, are the number of gender-based violence reports decreasing because of that decision that you have made? And lastly, I'd just like you to, if that becomes a no, I'd just like you to reconsider whether or not you are making a difference in gender-based violence. Remember that this is not something that only affects women, but it affects all of us as humans, as a family. Thank you for your time.
Viewers, thank you very much for bringing us to the end of this session. I know there's a number of requests, people who still want to engage. I will request Zweli to manage that process for us post this launch. At this stage, I would like us to move to the next item or agenda item of today, and that is using a very rare privilege, introduce another guest speaker who was not reported or recorded before we came in to this session today. But we have the privilege as the Masilela family to introduce in our midst the Prime Minister of the beautiful Kingdom of Eswatini, which in number 43 is still referred to as Swaziland for historical reasons. The Prime Minister is a very dear friend and believer of number 43 and the number 43 cause. He is what we call a Salesian old boy. He went to the school where all the Masilela boys went to. And last year's event, 2019, he led us in the front by delivering on the theme, Church and State. This is because of not only him being a politician or a businessman, he is also a deeply spiritual person. Baben Vunangur, you have the screen.
Thank you very much. UN Resident Coordinator in South Africa, representatives of the number 43 Foundation, the Masilela family, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to honor former Prime Minister in the Kingdom of Eswatini, Dr. A.T. Dlamini, who is part of this meeting. Allow me, before I share my congratulatory message, to really give just in 2 minutes a bit of history for those that may not know how the Kingdom of Eswatini is connected to the Masilela family, and in particular to South Africa, especially the struggle. In the early 1900s and 1913 to be specific. The Queen Mother in Eswatini, who was the leader and, if you like, head of state of the Kingdom of Eswatini for a period of 21 years. In 1912, when what was then referred to as the Native National Congress, which later became the African National Congress, started. And she was one of the first members of that organization. In fact, she was a card-carrying member. She contributed to the formation of the NNC. In 27th February 1914, she sent her second-born son to attend a meeting in Kimberley. The meeting was a Kimberley conference called by this South African Native National Congress, and it was presided over by Dr. John Dube to protest against the South African Land Act of 1913. One of the organizers was Salty Plache, who was an eloquent speaker and writer, who in that meeting he declared that the act made the South African native not actually a slave, but a pariah in the land of his birth. Malunge reported this discussion on his return to the Queen Mother, and Sopuza, who was a king in waiting, and he was actually 15 years old at the time, listened and remembered this story. Why I'm relating this story is that King Sopuza later took over as king in 1921, as the king of Swaziland at the time. Today is the Kingdom of Eswatini. He led the nation until independence in 1968, and he played an extremely important role in welcoming a lot of people from South Africa. One of those people is the Masilela family, who came to the Kingdom of Eswatini basically to seek refuge, moving away from the apartheid regime. And they stayed in the kingdom and found a home in the Kingdom of Eswatini, and were able to carry out various activities and contributed to the liberation of South Africa, based here in Eswatini. So the Kingdom of Eswatini has a very deep and strong connections with South Africa. A lot of people, especially the young generation, don't really know and have this particular history, and sometimes we feel bad as a Maswati when we see that, because we contributed to the foundation of South Africa and its liberation today. So I'm excited to be part of this historic event of launching the electronic book, number 14, COVID-19 Journey. This book vividly captures the way our lives have been altered by the many measures put in place at the height of an invisible enemy. We witnessed the launch of this book at a time when the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic have limited our face-to-face interactions and travels, following preventative measures put in place to contain the spread of the virus. This is a pandemic that continues to threaten many more lives in our region and across the world. I commend the Masilela family for conceiving the idea of putting together this enlightening electronic book, plus the determination of the organizers of this event, who, though faced with nagging challenges, adopted technology to allow us to meet and be part of this historic ceremony. This is reminiscent of the time of apartheid, when humanity across the world, and especially in the region, united and became creative in finding ways to defeat that inhuman system which seemed powerful at the time. Yes, they found ways to meet, relay information, and forge a way forward even under trying circumstances. The legacy of Trelawney Park House number 43 has been celebrated for many years, capturing the role played by the Kingdom of Eswatini in supporting the struggle of liberation for South Africa. It is no secret that a number of South Africans in leadership positions today have a positive story to tell about the legacy of this house and the contribution made by the Kingdom to the liberation struggle. May I take this time to commend the Masilela family for documenting such an important part of history to allow all generations to learn and appreciate the role of fellow Africans in ending the brutality of apartheid. The Masilela family should be applauded for encouraging African integration and ensuring that Africans are able to tell the story of their experiences in their own words. The launch of this book comes at an opportune time when the world is coming together to find a lasting solution to a pandemic that continues to wreak havoc globally, a pandemic that is seemingly reversing the economic and social gains that have been achieved so far. The Kingdom of Eswatini has not been spared by this pandemic, derailing our development plans at a time when we were confident of making remarkable strides in our economic journey. Some funds designated for the implementation of our development agenda in the current national budget have had to be redirected to strengthen our health system and help lessen the burden on our citizens whose livelihoods have been affected by the measures that were put in place to control the spread of the coronavirus. We have since launched a post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan with a stimulus package of 30 billion that is largely funded by the private sector, in line with our strategy of facilitating a private sector-led and export-oriented economy. The main objective is to bring back our economy on the path of sustainable development in line with Vision 2022. Allow me to express my sincere admiration and gratitude to the partnership forged by the 43 Foundation and the United Nations. It is gratifying to note that the United Nations has seen it fit to partner with a family unit to effectively respond to the challenges of COVID-19. The Kingdom of Eswatini has enjoyed cordial relations with the United Nations, and it is our hope that we can all form a tripartite arrangement to save lives and livelihoods of people across our two states in these challenging times. As I conclude, may I once again commend the great work done by the Masilela family in documenting the historical political cooperation between Eswatini and South Africa. I encourage all of us in our areas of influence to continue to vigorously promote the integration of the rich history of our two countries and, in extension, the linkages between our shared history as a continent. Siyabonga. Thank you.
Siyabonga kakhulu Baba Ndvunankhulu, usibusisile. At this point, I will hand over back to Umphathishlalo.
Siyabonga Nkosi, siyabonga Ndvunankhulu eMavlamai. I shall now ask Wandile Masilela to give us a word of thanks and further assist with whetting your appetite, inviting you to the next legacy event to be in the Kingdom of Eswatini next year. Wandile, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Zwelibanzi, and the family and everyone. You know, when we started this project, it was from a point of this epidemic hitting Italy and Europe, and we had no personal connection to it until it hit home. And then when it hit home, we started to know a friend or two that were at the morgue and were mourning 2 or 3 people a week that had left us. And it has really devastated us a lot. But for me, is not to give you my personal background of how it affected me, especially with part of my family being in the Eastern Cape, because my wife is from the Eastern Cape. Were affected a lot, and it showed us which we are really privileged to be here and be able to access a few things like oxygen that can keep you alive, things that they wouldn't have in the coast. And when we received a call one day to say my wife's mother is positive, the grandmother is positive, the uncle has passed away, it hit us a lot. And the only thing we could do was to join the family through Zoom for the funeral, and then we were able to source oxygen from Afros and just send it down. We couldn't go down. It was devastating. And when the program was being concluded to say number 43 is happening in August, the book launch is happening in August, and it's Women's Month, and the women should lead. My wife had to take lead, but she was going through all those cycles. That's why she couldn't participate in the launch. But yeah, for me today is just to thank you everyone for participating, and I will thank you. Let me go into it. Mine is to mention that on behalf of the number 43 family, we deeply appreciate your contribution to this publication and the work that simply went into this splendid launch. We are humbled. We're sensitive to the environment that we considered the most environmentally friendly process in this publication. Only one copy was printed for editing purposes. I extend my sincere gratitude to the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Eswatini, Babe Absalom Mandulo Dlamini. Siyabonga kakhulu boss. To the former President, Deputy President, that is Umama Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Siyabulela. To Bekele-Thomas, the Resident Coordinator of the United Nations in South Africa, we thank you. To Ukoko Esther Mahlangu, who hosted us in Mpumalanga for this year's Makokoism event, Siyathokoza Kwamambala. To General Shoke, we thank you also. The Macebo family in KZN, Pietermaritzburg, through Building African Communities, which organized the inaugural Makokoism on the 27th of June 2020. Siyabonga bozikhali ngokuzikhandla kakhulu. Isigodlo samaNdebele eMthambothini kuNgwenyama uMabhoko wesithathu. Siyathokoza sithi bayede. Our sponsors who are mentioned and those who chose not to be identified, siyathokoza nagini. We thank you deeply for participating on the check-ins and virtual chats that birthed the idea that gave life to this book. To Uzwelibanzi, you deserve a special mention. You challenged the family to record the experience of once in a generation. During a COVID check-in, Uzwelibanzi in fact said the family should write about the COVID experience from a family perspective, the experience of many firsts, in fact. We acknowledge ENCA, News Africa, Newsroom Africa, and other sources that made the 9 fake news. We thank you, all the participants who have spent their resources to be here with us on this link. I speak for all when I say Umkhulu Corporal Solomon Butogoma Masilela, Siyathokoza kakhulu Dlambili, for allowing us to share your story and consistently abuse your humble abode. I had such a great time this afternoon rather, and I look forward to seeing you in the next number 43 in SA Charity Golf event and Legacy event. The number 43 Golf and Legacy event will proceed as follows. On the 16th of April 2021, which is next year, it will be held at the Pretoria Country Club, followed by the Legacy event 2 months later from the 18th to the 19th of June in Ezulwini in the Kingdom of Eswatini. By way of teaser, the speakers remain unchanged and in alphabetical order, like we had them this year. The family of Ubantu Stephen Biko, Ken's Mama, Delphine Govenda, Ukoko Esther Mashangu, Ukashe Hombele, Manzini Kwaya, Unsikwane, the family of the late Robert Sobukwe, Ushoma Josie, Unati, and many others. For more details, please follow go to the website number 43, shilonipark.org, and this recording will obviously be available on YouTube and other channels. I thank you, Zweli.
Thank you very much, Mnayef. Thank you, colleagues. May I also do the same and remind you that the book is available for download online in the number 43 Chiloni Park website. For those who are old-fashioned like I am or sentimental, who like to smell a page, touch it in order to enjoy the reading, the book is can also be ordered online for a hard copy. The price of the copy is it's 350 rand actually. That's about lunch money for some. So you can also use that to buy more than one and give it as gifts. It would make a very good Christmas gift as well.